We move on to Europe. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that his country is definitely not losing the war against Russia, but has warned that victory will come at a high cost. In an exclusive interview, Zelensky has said Ukraine proposes maintaining current positions with a ceasefire, followed by a dialogue to assess the next steps. He has added that Russian forces are pushing for a quick peace that would allow them to reclaim Donbas without major losses. While Ukraine wants a fair and sustainable resolution, Zelensky has also stressed that holding elections during the war would be destructive and could deepen societal divisions. On military support, Zelensky has confirmed that intelligence from the US and other European partners remains at the same level, despite reductions in other forms of aid under President Donald Trump. He has acknowledged challenges with Starlink connectivity, saying Ukrainian forces are working to resolve the problem. But Russian cyber and communications attacks are more severe. Zelensky has also called for European troops to be positioned near the front line in case of a ceasefire, ensuring readiness and coordination with Ukrainian forces. Let's listen into what Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has shared.
Але не можна сказати, що ми програємо війну. Чесно, ми її точно не програємо. Точно. Питання, чи ми переможемо, так, це питання. Але дуже дороговартісне питання. Тому і пропозиція наша, дивіться, давайте стоїмо там, де стоїмо. Там припинення вогню. Переходимо до діалогу. Ну, а там як вийде вже. Внутрішня політика наступна, що русські хочуть, давайте чесно, русські хочуть просто мене поміняти. Так я думаю, що це справа українців, а в кінці кінців вони ж достатньо, такі люди достатньо прямі, можуть так і говорити, можуть.
Now we welcome Dr. Gilbert Doctorow. He's a Russian affairs expert, joins us live from Brussels. Thank you very much, Dr. Doctorow, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's statement that his country is definitely not losing the war against Russia, what's your analysis currently?
There was one truthful statement in what you just showed of Mr. Zelensky's appearance on a video. The one truthful statement was that the Russians would like to replace him. That's completely true. The Russians are looking for regime change. But everything else that he said was being whispered into his ear by what the Russians call his curators. The leader of the Russian negotiating team, Mr. Medinsky, gave an interview yesterday, which I watched part of it, in which he said the situation is as follows. The Russian negotiating team has one person in charge of it. That means it goes back to Vladimir Putin. The Ukrainian negotiating team has 3 people to consult. Now, I think, what is he talking about? It means that Mr. Zelensky is not his own agent. Mr. Zelensky is repeating what his backers in Europe, and namely Kaja Kallas and her boss Ursula von der Leyen, and their big friend and backer Friedrich Merz, are telling him to say. They are insisting that he will get the assistance he needs, that he will be given financial and military material supplies from Europe, and therefore keep on the fight, and you will win. That is all delusional. And just how delusional came up in today's news. Today's news tells us that Mr. Orban has threatened to veto and therefore to cancel completely the 95 billion euro loan that was agreed in December in the European Council and is subject to complete unanimity of all 27 member states supporting it. Mr. Orban has said to Mr. Zelensky, either you renew the supplies of oil via the Druzhba pipeline, or I will veto this measure. If he vetoes the measure, then in Q2 2026, just a few months from now, Ukraine is finished, financially destroyed. Therefore, to hear him, Mr. Zelensky, speak confidently about winning the war is utter nonsense.
So if that's the case, what should be the strategy of Zelensky moving forward? What can be his plan?
Get out while he can. This will not end in a pretty way. There's a power struggle going on in and around Kiev. Mr. Zelensky, who was formerly the military commander-in-chief in Ukraine, and then made some statements about how the war was going badly, and suddenly became persona non grata and was exiled to England, where he was appointed the Ukrainian ambassador. He is now doing what he can to remove Zelensky and to take power himself. Meanwhile, others around Mr. Zelensky, like his head of the presidential office, Mr. Budanov, former chief of the Ukrainian military intelligence, is also probably maneuvering to remove Mr. Zelensky. So if he's a smart man, he's not stupid, he'll be looking for the first route out while he can still walk away from Ukraine and not be carried to the nearest cemetery.
Right. And, as you earlier mentioned that Russians are looking for regime change. What about Ukrainians? Ukrainians, are they also looking for regime change?
Probably not. But let's look at the facts. For the last 12 years, from 2014, when this coup d'etat took power and brought, with the American assistance, brought ultranationalists to power in Kiev. Since then, there has been a war waged on journalism, a war waged on information sources within Ukraine, and so there has been brainwashing of the whole Ukrainian nation. They have heard repeatedly what you just presented a few moments ago, their leaders telling them that victory is just around the corner, when it couldn't be farther from the truth. Therefore, the Ukrainian nation does not know the real state, a deplorable state of their armed forces. They do not know how close they are to losing the war militarily in the Donbass, meaning Russia taking all land up the Dnieper River. And so they're in no position to make a rational decision on whether they support or don't support the existing regime. My prediction is the only way that Ukraine can save itself from total national destruction, which is what the European Commission is projecting as their plan for Ukraine. The only way that they can survive this is by a capitulation in which the normal officer caste in Ukraine, which is very well educated, takes power for a transition period, during which the real state of situation would be exposed to the nation, and they could make a reasonable, informed decision on what they want to do next. That is not the case today.
Yes, and last but not least, yesterday we saw the breaking news coming in that European Commission has approved the German government's continued control over Rosneft's German assets. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Look, the relations between Germany and Russia are deteriorating daily, and that Germany would attack one of the largest oil producers and distributors in Russia is in line with Mr. Merz's position of open warfare against Russia. What he doesn't do, he should tune into Russian television. I'm sure that his television set is not censored like that of his compatriots. And listen to what they're saying, because what they're saying is that Russia, at least according to the more patriotic persons who appear on these very authoritative talk shows, they're saying that Russia should no longer consider just sending an Oreshnik here or there against German arms manufacturers. They're saying that Germany should be wiped off the face of the earth with nuclear bombs. If Mr. Merz listened to that, he might sober up.
With that, I'd like to thank Dr. Gilbert Doctorow for joining us, as always, and sharing that insight with us on NewsX World. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Venezuela. Venezuelan authorities have granted amnesty